Good evening, my friends. This is Angy Stewart from Miami Inner Light here at Kardec Radio. It's a pleasure to be back. We returned 2 weeks ago, but we are back again, and I want to thank all of you to watching us or to the ones that are listening to us in Kardec Radio. If you know anyone that would like to participate of this study of so many other beautiful books that the Kardec Radio reads and study, please send them the invitation. If they don't have Facebook, they can download the app, kardecradio.com. They can also listen through their phones. They can also see the videos on YouTube. So there are many different ways that we can continue improving our studies, our spiritist knowledge. And just a reminder to all of you, as we always do, so when we start our studies, we always like to start with a prayer, so we can calm down, we can relax a little bit, connect with the enlightened spirits. And also a reminder, if you like, put some water next to you, and the enlightened spirits will bless it, and you can drink after the study and during the week. So right now we just would like to invite you to connect, to relax, and let's do our initial prayer. Dear God, thank you very much for bringing us here, back again to this beautiful night, to continue the study of these books that are so important to our souls. Please help all of us to connect with the enlightened spirits, so we will be better guided, we will be able to understand deeper, and most of all, we will be able to put in practice everything we'll be studying tonight. Please send this loving energy to our friends who are not here yet. Thank you so much. So be it. That's it. Very good. Welcome, 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 all of you. And if you are new here, I just want to quickly tell you, this is the book that we start reading. Yes, you can see it. Thought and Life. So it's 30 beautiful chapters. We have been studying for quite some time. Today we start chapter 20, first, Duty. And this was a book written in the spiritual realm by the spiritual guide of Chico Xavier, Emmanuel. So he was there, and the spirits asked him if he could write a little book, a summary, to the spirits that were there studying to be able to reincarnate and have like a stronger guidance, really like some guidelines how to better live on earth. And this is the book that he wrote. As you can see, it's not a very thick book. Let me see how many pages. 111 pages. So it's a very easy book to read. But as I always say, one thing is to read, another thing is to study. When you're studying anything, you are digesting. So you're going little by little, trying to really read the sentence and see if you're understanding what you are reading. And that's why we are here. We try to read, and then little by little, we go back reading the paragraphs and trying to understand what was explained by Emmanuel. And as always, I invite you to make comments, to ask questions. Please participate. It would be really wonderful if we could have like an open chat room with lots of cameras and lots of friends participating, as I used to do before we joined the live on Facebook. But Facebook don't offer this opportunity yet. Soon, I believe soon. So until this happens, please write your comments, and I will be very happy to have your participation. So we do this for 30 minutes, and then the next 30 minutes we study the gospel according to Spiritism, that you Spiritists all know. If you don't know this book, this is the Spiritist version of the New Testament. So Kardec picked up the main teachings from Jesus, and little by little, he explains how Jesus taught the beautiful parables that many times are very confusing, and digest with deeper explanations from the elevated spirits. So as we always say, Kardec didn't write the book. He codified the messages from the enlightened spirits, and of course, he put in it his observations too. But he was so careful that he separated. This is from the spirits. He wrote in a typo, in a different type of letter, and then he put underneath his comments. So this is just to show us how he was well organized and how he wanted to prove that the spirit said something, and he was just making observations, comments, and of course enlightening us to understand it even better. So before I start, let me just say hello to our friends here. It's always great to be here every week. So hello. Well, it went all the way up. I can't see everyone, but I see here Célia Lancaster. Welcome, Célia. Welcome. Márcia Trajano. Very good. Welcome, Márcia. Sol Souza. Awesome. João Bosco, my friend. Eudora is a doll. I'm going to New York in August, and I want to see her. Hope I can do it. Carla Marques, my dear, welcome. Very good, guys. So let's start reading. If you don't have the copy of the book, please go to Miami Inner Light, go to photos. You will see the book there, Thought and Life, and then you just check chapter 21, Duty. So let's go. Duty. Duty is defined by submission to certain principles established by divine wisdom as laws for our self-development. Without discipline, there can be no security. In the subatomic world, particles obey natural law. Likewise, constellations follow in unison with their celestial glory. People travel long distances through the air, far from their homes, yet they would not be able to do so without obedience to the laws that govern the movement of the aeroplane carrying them. We may then symbolically describe duty as a series of activities in the arena of goodness that the Supreme Lord gives us the responsibility to execute. This is done to uphold order and the advancement of His divine work, and for our own self-development. Each intelligence, consciousness may be compared to a ray in the sphere of life, evolving from the surface to the center. Its obligation is to respect, promote, facilitate, and support the common good. Spontaneous attitude that will receive the natural help of all who have benefited from its sympathetic gestures and cooperation. Each spirit shapes its own reflexes, wherever it may be, thereby disposition itself to receiving reflexes of the more enlightened minds, which in turn will lead it to contemplate broader horizons towards progress and to acquire the higher values of life. So, by fulfilling our moral duty, to which we are continuously alerted by our conscience, we both project our best and receive the best of the others. Many times, however, we disturb the work the Lord entrusted us to do. We not only disassemble the mechanical part of our existence, we also cause disorder to many other lives by disturbing many parts in the machine of destiny. Hence, the inexorable compulsion for a great inner struggle that we then must face, that may be called regenerative duty. This allows us to develop the reflexes that renew our individuality in relation to those to whom we owe our sacrifices. This is why we receive, by the imposition of a circumstance, an intolerant wife, a quarrelsome husband, a rude boss, an unhappy worker, an incurable illness, and a work assignment that favor others. This function as a spiritual tiling ground. Yes, it's correct. This function as a spiritual tiling ground where we achieve our rehabilitation through hard work. Therefore, it is useless to run away from the heavy obligations in which we find ourselves due to the force of natural circumstances along our pathway. Even though the gratefulness of the others may try to free us from our renunciations, reason dictates from the depth of our conscience that we should be ever watchful over our tasks of patience and tolerance, humility and love, to which we are called. If we fail to do so, regardless of indications suggesting we can abandon our struggle, we will be weighted down by hidden sensations of disgust with ourselves and our weaknesses. It starts with mild irritations and minor discouragement. It ends by introducing our spirit into institutions for the sick, or places us in the pit of frustration. Wow! As always, it is very powerful. It's very powerful. It's very important. It's a very strong message that Emmanuel gives to us. And it's important for us to really understand the text. So if we go back to the beginning, Emmanuel says, without discipline, there can be no security. So if you have read the book, or if you have seen the movie that teaches us about Chico Xavier life, when he meets Emmanuel, and Emmanuel asks him, do you really want to work with me? And Chico Xavier says, yes. What can I do to be able to work with you? What can I do to be able to learn and to serve? And then Emmanuel said, there are 3 conditions that you have to follow. And the Chico says, okay, which are the conditions? And Emmanuel says, the first one, discipline. And Emmanuel like, Chico Xavier, discipline. Okay, what's the second? Discipline. And the Chico said, discipline. And what's the third? Discipline. So that's exactly what Emmanuel told Chico Xavier in the beginning of his more controlled mediumship, where he was going to be working more directly with him, Emmanuel. So right there, we realize how important it is. Discipline is something extremely important to all of us in every single sector of our lives. You can think about our daily lives. We have to have discipline with ourselves. It's important to have discipline with ourselves, to wake up on a correct time so we can have enough time to have breakfast, then go to work, or whatever duty you have. So it's important to have discipline to do that. We have to have discipline with our bodies. We need to take a shower. We need to eat well, although we can be sick. So there are things that are very important. We need to drink water. It's extremely important. So this is a discipline with ourselves. But so many other disciplines with our family members, with our jobs, even with our friends, or in this case, with the Spirit Center. So everything, there are responsibilities, there are duties, and we should follow. If we don't follow every single thing in life, if we don't follow the better advice, for example, from a mother, if we don't follow that, we follow our instinct, and then probably wrong things will happen. And what happened, we will feel pain, we will feel negativity, we will feel consequences. So this is more or less what Emmanuel is trying to explain in this beautiful text. So then in the 1, 2, 3, in the 4th paragraph, he talks about the responsibility to execute. So he talks about the goodness that the Supreme Lord gives us, the responsibility to execute. So here is exactly what I just mentioned, is the responsibility as parents, responsibility as kids, responsibility if you are a doctor, you have responsibility with your patients. If you are a teacher, you have responsibilities with your students. So everything in life, you have responsibilities. And if you don't follow it well, very bad consequences could happen. So imagine, let's start thinking, if a doctor just don't care, is tired, don't examine a patient, just prescribe whatever is in his mind and think it's okay, we don't know what could happen. That patient could get much more ill, that patient could die. And you know, if there is a patient that didn't search for any other reference as a doctor, for example, he really died in that condition, in the spiritual realm, this doctor that didn't follow his responsibility well will be culpable of this. And you know, as we always explain, it's not that the God is there waiting to start saying all the bad things we did, but as we are going to read in the text, it's our conscience. Our conscience will say, that day I should have done that and I didn't. So this is more or less what it's saying here. So the next paragraph, each intelligence, consciousness, may be compared to a ray in the sphere of life, evolving from the surface to the center. So this point is very interesting, evolving from the surface to the center. So like from the surface to the center. So it's like an inner light. Is our inner light, is our inner enlightenment. When we are able to realize the things that we are doing wrong, we start enlightening ourselves. We start shifting our minds and we start connecting. We start really connecting with things that we used to do and we felt it was okay. And nowadays, if you do it, you feel wrong because you know it's not good. It's your inner light. How do you say? It's opening. It's starting. It's growing. So this is beautiful, and it happens to all of us. And yes, it usually happens when we get a little bit older. Because we get older, we start giving value to certain things that when we were in our teen years or when we were very young adults, we never really thought much about it. And when we get older, when all that super excitement already passed, then your age brings you to deeper responsibilities, to things that are much more important than our day-to-day lives. Then you start giving really value to things that we have never thought about it. So this is the beauty of our inner light connected with getting a little bit older. So if you go to page 82nd, let me see, it's 922. Then Emmanuel continues. A spontaneous attitude that will receive the natural help of all who have benefited from its sympathetic gestures and cooperation. So this you can understand, for example, when you start doing good to other people, you start practicing acts of charity, you start helping others. It can be family members, it can be friends, but it could be also people that never saw you. So when you start doing these little gestures, don't need to be anything gigantic, but when you start doing your little by little every day, all the time, or at least sometimes, these people who benefited from you, from whatever you did, they will send you this positive energy, this energy of love. Even if just in that moment you gave someone a sandwich, that person will be grateful, and the person maybe not even say thank you, but the energy of love that person will send to you, even if that energy is momentary. Yes, maybe that person is not going to remember of you in 1 week, but you start receiving. And the important thing is that you are not going to be receiving this positive energy just from the people you are acting the charitable cause, but also from the spirits who love those people. So you help one person, and there is the spirit of the mother of this person who is trying to help so much, and you helped this person. So this mother is very thankful to you. So you are also collecting this type of love. So that's why he is mentioning here that you start receiving all this beautiful energy from the people who are sympathetic to your good gestures. And then he continues in the next paragraph. Each spirit shapes its own reflexes, whatever it may be, thereby disposing itself to receiving reflexes of the more enlightened minds. In turn, will lead it to contemplate broader horizons toward progress, to acquire a higher values of life. So this is when you want to evolve even more. Is when you realize, yes, it's very good to give a sandwich to some people here and there, but it would be so much better if I could really help someone else in need. Then you join a cause that you love, like helping kids in Africa. Now we have the Fraternity Without the Borders that it's so famous in Brazil, helping so many kids in Africa, but also families in Venezuela, and so many different causes. Sick kids in Brazil. So you join them, you become a member, you help every month. So this is something a little bit bigger, because now your mind is being more wide, and you are, wow, I can do a little bit more. And so many other things, not necessarily monetary, but you can join a hospital where you become a volunteer, where you go there once a month to visit sick kids, or you can go to a nursing home every month, every 2 weeks, to visit the elderly who live there. So you can give them a little bit of love. So this is your conscience opening up. And this happens to all of us. A certain point of life, we start thinking about it. And then he continues. So by fulfilling our moral duty, to which we are continuously alerted by our conscience. So this is what I just mentioned before. When we die, it's not that God is going to be telling us what was good or what was bad, but it will be our conscience. We always see that we'll have like a 1 minute movie of all our lives, and we'll show all the good things we did and all the mistakes we committed. And in that moment, our conscience is broader, it's open. And then you start like, wow, why did I do that? Or why I didn't do that. So it's really our conscience who connects us to our own wrongdoings. And then he continues. Hence, the inexorable compulsion, for a greater inner struggle that we then must face, that may be called regenerative duty. So this is like the magnet that attracts us. So we did something against one person, let's suppose. And then the next life, we have our program, our spiritual reincarnation, our program of reincarnation set up. So in this reincarnation, we have the main things that will happen, but also there are so many things that depend on our free will. But there are certain things that are magnetic attracted by our conscience that attracts in this life. So he continues here, because of this magnetic attraction, that's what happens. That's when a person has an intolerant wife, a quarrelsome husband, a rude boss, or an unhappy co-worker, or incurable illnesses, or even a work assignment that only favors others and not the person who did it. So it's important for us to understand there are no coincidences. So a lot of people say, such a bad coincidence, or like this thing happened to that person. Or when the person don't say it's a coincidence, but it said, this person is so unhappy, I'm so sorry, her husband, it's so terrible. Whatever is the situation, it's not a coincidence, but it's this magnetic energy that attracted that situation or that person to be connected because of mistakes of previous lives. And sometimes we also know that's not previous lives. Mistakes happen in this own life that will have to be repaid somehow. We don't like to say repay, but mistakes that will have to be, how can I better explain? It's the law of action and reaction. If I did something bad to someone, it does not mean that that person will make something bad against me, but that negative energy is layering there. So some things that I did badly to someone maybe will return to me through someone else. But the same way happens when you do good to someone and that person did not even say thank you to you, but some other person will do good to you too. So you will receive this benefit from nowhere because of the magnetic energy in the air, if we could say like that. So this is it's very interesting. And then he continues, therefore, it is useless to run away of these heavy situations or heavy obligations, like he says here, in which we found ourselves due to the force of natural circumstances along the pathway. But one thing we have to remember, in Spiritism, we always say that there are situations we shouldn't get out immediately. But you have to be careful. When a situation reaches to a point that your own life is at risk, then yes, then that's the only situation that we say, yes, this should be done. For example, a mother and a baby, the life of the mother is at risk. So in this situation, if the mother wants, then an abortion would be allowed. But we know so many situations that doctors told mothers, including my own mother, about my sister. You should do an abortion because your kid will have this or that disease. This is up to the mother to do or not. So this is the only situation that Spiritism said, do an abortion, for example. But also, what about the situation of a husband and a wife, and this relationship had become really, really dangerous, extremely dangerous, in situations that this husband is putting the life of the wife at risk or the life of the kids at risk. So in this situation, yes, the person might need to search for a divorce, because unfortunately in this life, this remediation, it's unfortunately is not happening. It's not working, or at least at that moment is not working. So to preserve the life, that's when the situation is better to avoid a life to be lost. So this is the important thing for us to understand. But what Emmanuel is trying to say here, and he continues in the last paragraph, regardless of indications suggesting we can abandon our struggle, we will be weighted down by hidden sensations of disgust with ourselves and our weaknesses. For example, let's suppose a mother who has a husband who became drug addict, and then lots of friends, maybe family members, start telling her, you should abandon him. He's not good for you. It's just causing you problems. And this woman, she did not even try to help the husband. She did not even try to talk to him. You need to go to a hospital. You need to go to a clinic. I will be here to help you. She just decides, yeah, I can't take it. I can't take it anymore. I'm leaving, or throw him out of the house. This situation is not helping this man, because now he will be really desperate, and he probably will get even more drugs, and who knows, maybe he will become homeless, maybe he will die. And the consequences for this woman will be very difficult, So these persons that are put in situations that are very difficult, they need to exercise what Emmanuel says here. You have to be very watchful and careful with your conscience, because you need to exercise your patience, tolerance, humility, and love. So that's what we have to do in these very difficult situations. It's very, very important. The same thing with kids, rebellious kids, or kids who get involved in alcohol and they become alcoholic. These people, they need our love, they need our help. And there are so many institutions that can help. For example, the Alcoholic Anonymous, where they meet there and they can all talk about their own struggles and they can have support of each other. So in these situations, that's exactly what Emmanuel is saying here. If you just abandon them and say, get out of here, I did everything, I can't take care anymore, that's a big problem, because that you are neglecting your duty. And in the last sentence, Emmanuel says, it ends by introducing our spirit into institutions for the sick, or places us in the pit of frustration. So this is really terrible, and the only thing that will happen here is that this obligation was postponed, because we know that God is so loving, and he helps us all the time. So if we couldn't do in this life, it's like in school. Okay, you did the whole year, you could not pass in math, it's fine. Next year you do your whole new year, but you have to do the math of the previous year. So yes, the new year will get more difficult. It's exactly like a reincarnation. Okay, you couldn't take care of you took care of A, B, and C issues, but the D issue, that was your alcoholic son, you did not take care, because in a previous life, probably you and this kid, you had something that brought alcohol, that brought this how do you say, when you can't, forgot the name, when you can't stop drinking, you become, it's a vice. It's a vice. You are the one who was responsible for him to getting into the vice in a previous life. So in this life, he came as your son, because in the spiritual realm, You said, I will do everything to help him to overcome this vice. But then when arrived, unfortunately, you didn't have the struggle. So you are just postponing, and your conscience and in your physical body will start getting sick, because that problem will be always in your mind. If not in your full mind, will be in your subconscious. And when you go to the spiritual realm, then you are going to be awakened, and then the problem will come back. So this is the importance of a duty, that we have to take this responsibility and do exactly like Emmanuel told Chico Xavier: discipline, discipline, discipline. And even discipline towards patience, love, resignation, because we can all do that. It's just like, it's hard, but we have to try every day. It's almost like going to the gym. Most of the people don't like to go to a gym. It's boring, you're there walking. But if you have a discipline, it's very good for your own health. Even if you don't want to be skinny or to be strong, but your own health will be very, very important. So, my friends, let's go to our second book, The Gospel According to Spiritism. So two weeks ago, we had finally started chapter 1, because all the weeks before we were studying really, really deeply the preface of the book that was done by the Spirit of Truth, as a message that Kardec separated for that. And then we studied the introduction, so many things so many details that Kardec placed in the introduction of the gospel, so important, especially about the lives and the teachings of Socrates and Plato. So we covered all this, and now chapter 1, the title is, I have not come to destroy the law. And then we have the 3 revelations, Moses, Christ, and Spiritism. And this is what we're going to be talking tonight. So we start with the Spirit's teaching, the new era. We comment this reading the last time, but I'm just going to read it quickly now. Number 1, I do not think that I have come to destroy the law or the prophets. I have not come to destroy them, but to fulfill them. For I say to you in truth that heaven and earth shall not pass away before everything in the law is perfectly fulfilled, up to one single iota and one single dot. So this is the message of Jesus that you can see in Matthew. And this is Jesus explaining, I didn't come here to change anything, to change all the rules. No, I don't want to change any rules. I don't want to change the laws. I want just to explain it a little bit better. He didn't say that, but it was because in that time, the spirits who were reincarnated in the time of Moses were reincarnating for so many years, and then they were finally able to be reincarnated in the time of Jesus also. So their minds were more open. So the teachings of Moses could be a little bit better explained. He could insert details that in the time the spirits wouldn't be able to understand. In the time of Moses, we incarnated there, we were very animal instinct people. We were really barbarians. So the law, if nowadays the law is still of the stronger, imagine in that time. So we are going to start today with Moses. And Moses is a very, very interesting character. If you are Brazilian, for example, there is a whole TV series that teaches it was beautifully done, explaining all the life of Moses, since being the little baby abandoned by the Hebrew family that went in the river, and then the Egyptian daughter of the king, the Pharaoh, the daughter of the Pharaoh. She took the baby, she adopted, and then, you know, most of you know the story, but it's really beautiful, beautifully done by the TV channel Record in Brazil. But there are so many movies, my goodness, so many movies, especially the old movies. They really are beautiful. I love this story. So let's read what Kardec wrote about Moses. So number 2, Moses. There are 2 distinct parts of the Mosaic law. The law of God, promulgated on Mount Sinai, and the civil or disciplinary law established by Moses. One is invariable. The other, meaning the disciplinary law, is appropriate for the customs and character of the people, and it changes with the time. The law of God is formulated in 10 following commandments. So these are the famous 10 commandments received by Moses, and God wrote the commandments in the big pieces of stone. So let's read them. Number 1, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other foreign gods before me. You shall make neither a graven image nor any figure of anything that is above in the heavens or below on earth, nor of anything that is in the waters under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor shall you render them supreme worship. So we know that, especially in the time of Jesus, and when the Saint Paul, that was Paul of Tarsus, was incarnated, he had very, very tough issues with the Greeks, because the Greeks, they believed in so many different gods. And when Paul went there trying to teach the Greeks about the one God that he believed, it was like almost like a comedy. Nobody believed in him, nobody accepted, and he was like stoned a few times, and he almost died. So we know that. We know the Romans also had many gods, but lots of Romans were more open-minded, and they started understanding the message of Paul. Actually, happened a movie very famous, Paul the Apostle. I haven't seen yet, but I want it so much. Everybody says it was a wonderful movie. Number 2, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. So this nowadays, it's really something that we have to think about. I am a person that really have to think about that. It says again, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. And there are so many common expressions nowadays that we do. Like I say a lot, oh my God. It's like an expression of being surprised. But we shouldn't. We shouldn't. Because it's like we are saying God. That's a word that should be more connected with really a spiritual meaning. Or a lot of people say Jesus. And I had a co-worker who said he was an atheist, and he used to say Jesus all the time. And one day I asked him, but you said you don't believe in God, you don't believe in absolutely anything. So you follow Jewish tradition, but you don't believe in anything. And why you say Jesus all the time? And that's exactly what he told me. Oh, I say that because it's just a force of expression. But we really should think about that. We should think about that and stop saying. So I will start controlling myself a little bit more to don't be saying that so shallowly like that. in a so shallow way. So number 3, you shall remember to sanctify the Sabbath day. So the Sabbath day for the Hebrew people was the Saturday. So they was a day that they should take into reflection, think about the things you did. So it is good. Most of the people nowadays actually observe the day that the most of the people who really don't work. A lot of people go to their churches and like, for example, us to the Spiritist Center. Number 4, you shall honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God will give you. This is so important, so important. Your mother and father, even if they are not good for you, even if they abandon you, whatever was the reason they went through, we have to remember this. We have to remember we are incarnated, talking, listening, walking, because we had a mother and father. So even if our parents or our mother, because unfortunately many times people don't even know their parents, but they had mothers, even if the mother is not a good person, or if this mother could not, for whatever reason, we don't know, we can't be judging. If this mother couldn't take care of you and gave you into an orphanage, or someone else adopted you, you have your own life. If she hadn't continued with the pregnancy, you wouldn't be here. So we have to be very thankful, to respect our parents, and to do the best we can in order to help them. Even if you don't know them, pray for them. It's so important. So we are doing our duty, as we read in the other book. Number 5, you shall not kill. This is pretty obvious. We know the law of action reaction. So nowadays we know the consequences, but you have to think these laws here, they were given by God to Moses with that population that we were talking about. So for them, not kill was really surprising. It's like, not kill, but this man robbed my cow. Who knows? He deserves to die. This was the law of that time. So when these commandments, they came, they were pretty strong. People were shocked with this. For us nowadays, well, this is obvious, but imagine in the time of Moses. So think about it. You shall not commit adultery. The exactly same thing. Even if nowadays, unfortunately, lots of people, they do it, unfortunately. But in the time, it was even more common. Number 7, you shall not steal. Yes, we should never rob someone else. This is that person's belonging. We should respect it, because we also wouldn't like something that we have to be stolen. Number 8, you shall not covet false testimony against your neighbor. Yes, people who like to gossip, people who like to lie about the things they heard, and they always like increase a little bit. This is very dangerous. It can really destroy the reputation of someone, or it can create so many other types of trouble. Number 9, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, meaning you shall not desire your neighbor's wife or husband. So this is something, as I said, for us, this is like a normal that you shouldn't do, even if a lot of people do it all the time. But remember, yes, maybe a lot of people, the media, the neighbors, the family, they don't know it. But remember, God sees everything. And when you die, when you discarnate, your partner will discover it, and it will be so sad, will be so painful for him, for you. So think about it. Number 10, the last one. You shall covet neither your neighbor's house, nor his servant, nor his ox, nor his ass or donkey, nor any of the things that belong to him. So this was also something very important for that time, because that time, as I mentioned, was the time of the stronger. If you are stronger, you can have things, even if you have to kill to acquire the things. So this was the danger of that time, the danger of that population that was so rude, so ignorant, so tough. So Moses had this important task to be able to coordinate, to command all those people, and it was not easy. But then comes a very important explanations from Kardec. So let's see. This is for all times and all nations, and therefore has a divine character. All the others were laws established by Moses, who had to use fear in order to restrain a naturally troublesome and indisciplined people, among whom he had to combat the deep-rooted abuses and prejudices acquired during their slavery in Egypt. In order to give authority to his laws, he had to attribute to them a divine origin, as did the other lawgivers of early peoples. Human authority had to be based on God's authority. But only the idea of a terrible God could impress ignorant men and women, in whom moral sense and the sentiment of a refined justice were still little developed. It is quite obvious that the one who prescribed the commandments, "You shall not kill," "You shall not cause harm to your neighbor," could not be self-contradictory by making extermination a duty. The Mosaic laws per se had an essentially transitory character. So think about everything that is written here. So Kardec, he was explaining for us to understand a little bit deeper that Moses received the Ten Commandments from God. So you see that commandments, they are eternal. They are eternal teachings. We have to put them in practice forever, forever. And we have to practice so it becomes natural for us. It's not something that we have to control ourselves. It's something natural. This is my friend, who knows, ring, car, whatever. And I don't want to rob it, but I don't want to feel envy of it either. And this is very difficult for most of us. So people see someone else with something beautiful or something fantastic, like traveling to, who knows, to an island in the Pacific, and people feel envious of that. Oh, I cannot have that. I wish I could have that. But, you know, we all have different things in life. And sometimes we have a wonderful family, and that person has a wonderful vacation, but doesn't have the same thing. So if we could put this thing in perspective, we would understand that we are also happy with whatever we have, materially or spiritually speaking. But we always think that the house in somebody else's garden, the flower in somebody else's garden is brighter. We have to think that we have so many beautiful things also. So as I mentioned before, Moses had to guide all these people, and he had to guide them through fear, because they wouldn't respect him. So he created many laws, many other commandments besides the 10 commandments. They were the first commandments. There was the commandments from God. Moses himself created many others in order to establish rules with these people. They were so ruthless. So he had to say to them they were God's laws, so they would respect. And he had to show them a God of fear, although they wouldn't follow. he had really to tell them, if you don't do this, you will die. So he had to make people to be afraid of God. That's why the God of Moses is a fear God. But when came the time of Jesus, Jesus showed the people a God of love, a God of forgiveness, a God that was so different. So if you continue explaining here, if you continue reading, then the last sentence that Kardec is talking, you have to understand these commandments were not all from God, because if God said you shall not kill or you shall not harm your neighbor, how God would say you have to make extermination a duty? And yes, this sentence might be difficult for you to understand. Extermination a duty, what is he talking about? Well, if you study the Bible, if you study the Old Testament, you will read in Deuteronomy a passage where Moses said that he received a law from God, and this law was allowing them, in the time they were called Hebrews, or they could be called Israelites, and they were allowed to kill, they even wrote here, to kill the Canaanites. The Canaanites, the people who were from Canaan. So it's interesting. It's really interesting. I found an article also that explained this in detail. So this was like law that Moses wrote himself, saying it was from God, saying that the Canaanites should be exterminated. So how God was going to do that? So it was not God, it was Moses himself. And then there is a huge study explaining that the Canaanites, they were very dangerous people. They were always attacking, or they wanted to attack. But in the end, it's also shown that the people who lived with Moses, they never attacked the Canaanites. And there is a study that even said, later on, Moses said that God did another law contradicting the extermination, saying it's not necessary anymore. So this definitely was Moses writing that law. But don't think Moses did the laws like aggressive like that all the time. Moses was a very open-minded. He was a medium, and in the time he created the law of divorce. Can you think about it? The law of divorce. Yes, Moses created it. So you imagine in the time of Moses, if nowadays, 2018, women in certain parts of the planet, they still have to fight for the rights of many things. Few months ago, women got the rights to drive in one Arabic country. So imagine that. Only now, 2018, they got the rights to be able to drive. So only now women are really getting into their full rights. Not still in some parts of the planet. But in that time, women had no rights. Their lives were in the hands of their fathers. The fathers was a totally male society. So the men had the rights over their wives and their daughters. Whenever the daughter got married, her life now pertained to the husband, not to the father anymore, to the husband. So in that time, the men, they were allowed to have many wives. They didn't need to have one wife only. They could have as many as they could afford. So the law established certain rules. And that's when Moses starts establishing more and more and more rules to be able to control this man. So this man would be more controlled, and they would stop having so many wives. Because what happened? A man started having like 10 wives. So the oldest wife, the husband didn't even take care of that one. And then the youngest wife is the one that the husband really loved or took care of. So many situations happened that the oldest wife was abandoned, was rejected by the husband. And whenever the situation happened, the only choice of survival for this woman was going back to her father's house. But in that time, it was really something really bad to have a wife that was rejected by the husband. So usually this father would not accept the daughter back home. Very sad when you think about it. And then this woman, she could not go back to the husband's house. He didn't want her. She was not accepted by her father. She had no other male that she could really ask to live with, because this male would have responsibility of feeding her, taking care of her. So she became a beggar, and most of the time a prostitute. So Moses, seeing this, he starts establishing, you can have the maximum of 10 wives. You have to make enough money to support all of them. And then he started, you cannot divorce your wife just because she's old. So if you really take the laws, they are really created in order to protect wives. And in the end, he established, if there is no other way for you both to be together, you have to pay alimony to this woman because she will need to survive. So it's very interesting that Moses created the law of divorce to protect the women. They were being abandoned and mistreated in that time. And of course, as in any society, the monetary financial touched deeply in the pockets. Little by little, the husbands stopped having so many wives because it really became very expensive for them. So it's a curiosity, very interesting. So my friends, next week we will be talking about Jesus in this portion of gospel. So now it's already 10:03. I would like to invite all of you for our final prayer. Almighty God, thank you so much for the blessings received this night. All these beautiful teachings about duty, about the duty of Moses with its people. Thank you so much for these teachings. Help us, Master Jesus, to be able to fully understand. When we go to sleep tonight, we can dream about it. We can meet our guardian angels. We can talk about it, to make plans on how better to establish this in our daily lives. And help us to be able to remember and start following, really following these teachings. And Master, please send this loving energy to our friends that are in their houses right now, or they are listening to us. And please help all of us to be able to be connected in other 2 weeks, to be able to be back to continue our studies. Thank you so much. So be it. Very good, my friends. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure as always. And I hope you can come back again in 2 weeks. And right now, have a great night. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you.